Welcome to another episode of the Sussex Non-League Podcast, where we took a look at all the latest goings on across the county. I'm Matt Poll, and on this edition, I'm joined by Sussex sport guru Steve Bone and a very special guest, Hastings United manager David Altendorff. David represented Brighton and Sussex as a young player and then played extensively at Step 5, totalling around 200 games each for Newhaven and Ringmer, as well as playing for AFC Uckfield, Haywards Heath Town and Peacehaven and Telscombe. His first job in management was with Haywards Heath Town under 18s, who he led to a league title within 2 years. David was then head coach at Lancing, was part of the staff who helped them rise from the SCFL to the Isthmian South East division. More successes came as head of football at Ringmer and then head coach at Newhaven before taking on the manager's job at Loxwood in 2022 and leading them away from danger in the SCFL Premier. The 2023-24 season saw David back at Lancing but as manager, and the club enjoyed the highest ever finish, 6th in the Isthmian South East, only just missing out on a playoff place. David moved to Whitehawk as assistant manager at the start of the 24-25 season and would later become manager, but left when he felt a new manager would be the best course of action for the Hawks at that time. He landed the job as Hastings United manager earlier this season after the departure of Lee Carey. And David has also had success managing Sussex schools under 18s in 2019 and more recently with Chelsea Foundation under 19s. And his day job as assistant director with Chelsea FC Football College in Crawley, which we will hear more about later. Thank you first and foremost, David, for joining us today. How are you doing and how are things going at the pilot field?
Pleasure. Thanks for having me. I'm doing really well, really good. And things are going great down at the pilot field. So obviously, we had a poor result on Tuesday night, but we can dissect that one a little bit later if you want to. But generally speaking, it's been great and we're really enjoying it. We've made a lot of progress in a short period of time. And obviously, it's been tough because coming into a job in October is never ideal for anybody. And obviously, especially where the team is kind of near the foot of the table. But we're making baby steps, one step at a time, and we're optimistic about the future. So, we're enjoying it and we're looking forward to it,
David, when the job at Hastings became available early in the season, what attracted you to it? And were you a little bit daunted by the fact that Hastings had been relegated and were then struggling a little bit in the league below? Was that a factor in your thoughts, or did you just see it as a challenge?
No, I wasn't daunted. I was really excited. Said yes almost immediately when the phone call came. But I think probably not everyone knows this, but I actually interviewed for the job in the summer. So I think I was close to getting the job that summer. And then obviously in the end, they decided to go in a different direction with Lee Carey. So when the phone call came in October, I was really pleased. Just said yes immediately and is excited about the opportunity. I think if a big club like Hastings comes knocking, you don't say no.
There have been quite a turnover of players at Hastings in the past couple of years, David, with a number of different managers in the role in that time. Tell us about some of those you've signed since you took over. And do you now feel the squad is almost where you would like it to be?
Again, it's difficult to recruit at that time of year in October. I think, generally speaking, a lot of the players that are doing well that might be on your radar in the summer are already at a club and they're doing well. So it's hard to get them out of there, especially to a side that's languishing at the bottom of the table. But we were lucky, really. I've got quite a lot of contacts in the game, especially kind of in the, let's say, like the 17 to 23 bracket, that sort of professional development phase through my sort of college football background and things like that. So there was a few players that were maybe under the radar and a few boys playing lower leagues, so Step 5 and Step 6 that I managed to draft in. People like Jordan Mace, people like Sam Pigeon, who was only playing for Loxwood in Step 6. So I was able to get them in quite quickly and they've been really great, to be honest with you. So they've settled in nicely and been great acquisitions. In terms of the squad overall, I mean, you're always kind of assessing it and deciding whether or not there's areas you need to improve in. I'm very happy with the squad at the moment. I think it's extremely competitive. I said to the lads, even on Tuesday, that's probably the first time that I've felt like I've had the luxury of being able to rotate because I sort of trust the full 16, really. They're all good players and they can all, get a place in your starting 11. Obviously, we didn't get the result in the end, but besides the point. The talent is there, but obviously you never stand still in football. You're constantly reevaluating and seeing what you need to take yourself forward.
And David, looking at this season, sort of in isolation, is the aim for this season now, because we are at the end of January nearly, is the aim for this season just to make sure you stay up, hopefully with a bit to spare, and then think about the summer and maybe a promotion push next season or something like that? Is that the sort of sum total of the aim, do you think, for this season for the club?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were some people saying, when I came in and we picked up a couple of wins, and people were saying, is it too late to get in the playoffs? So I've always been quite sort of, I suppose, like realistic about it and pragmatic. The main thing really is to come in, make sure that the club stays in the division, and then start building towards next year. We're still not out of it. I know we're 8 points ahead of the drop zone at the moment, but then there's sides around us that are improving, like Erith have just appointed a new manager and 1-2 on the bounce. So we're certainly not considering it a foregone conclusion. Like, we've got to get ourselves out of trouble. There's 15 games to go. I see it as we probably need 4 more wins, so another 12 points on the board to take us to 43. Another one would be nice, and then we'll see what we're doing after that. But I think that's the goal, isn't it? Stay in the division and then start trying to organise yourselves for next year, where we really want to make a serious promotion push.
David, how high in the non-league pyramid do you think Hastings have the potential to go? It does kind of feel like a sleeping giant in some regard. You've got a big fan base down there. What's the longer-term dream for Hastings?
Yeah, I think everybody inside the club does see it that way, as a massive club with a huge ceiling. Obviously, the benefit of Hastings, where it's kind of so far detached from everything else, is there isn't really a direct rival, certainly not in our division, within 20 miles. So it is a big club that does have a big fan base. So I think it has got the potential to be an established and consistent Step 2 club, if not higher. I mean, there's no reason why it can't do that. Obviously, in the last few years, they've suffered a little bit, and they've obviously suffered relegation. But I think that's the longer term vision over the next sort of 5 years, is sort of get them back to a level in the pyramid that is fitting with the town and with the infrastructure and the professionalism around the club. So hopefully I can be a part of that for the next few years to come.
And David, while we've got you, are you able to tell us a little bit about the day job, if that's the way we can put it? Obviously, you're assistant director with the Chelsea FC Football College in Crawley. What does that involve? What sort of youngsters are you in charge of there, and how does the college fit in with the sort of wider football scene, both in Sussex and maybe even in the pro game?
Yeah, so there's quite a lot of these kind of football and education programs around now. When we first started, I mean, I've been here 10 years now, so over a decade. So when we first started, there wasn't a lot of this type of program in this sort of realm, but there's loads now. It's very competitive. There's lots of us. Even Bexhill have a program. Hastings have got their own program. Most football clubs, even Burgess Hill, are looking to start one up. But essentially what it is, the way it started was we had like a group of, let's say, 12 boys who were in school and disengaged with the sort of traditional academic route. So we put on some football provision for them, and it's kind of just grown and grown and grown. Obviously, adding the Chelsea badge gives a little bit more kudos to that. So we've got good links with the guys down at Cobham. And we've now got 5 men's teams and 1 women's team. So like over 150 players. So it's quite a big organisation. They train with us every day. We play matches on a Wednesday in a league called the EFL CIFA League. It's quite a good competition. So we've been lucky enough to win that 4 or 5 times. And when you win that, you get a trip out to Wembley Stadium, you get hospitality, the captain and the manager goes on the pitch and things like that. So it's good in terms of you're well looked after, it's professional. And obviously for the right calibre of player, there are opportunities to go out on trials. So in the last 4 years, we've been lucky enough to have 4 boys sign professional contracts. So for those at the top end, yeah, there's definitely opportunities from a football point of view. But for the vast majority, it's about giving them opportunities to work in the game, whether that's scouting or nutrition or psychology or personal trainers or, analysts. So it's about equipping them with the skills to work within that sector and doing a little bit of football on the side and developing that side of the game too.
Excellent stuff. Sounds very rewarding. Very rewarded indeed, David. Thank you for that fascinating insight. But stick around when we take a look at how our other sides have fared in the last fortnight. And we'll start as ever in the National League South. And after I crowned Worthing as a National League South champions-elect, they now can't buy a win. The Rebels are now without a win in 3 in the league, but they still remain top of the table, albeit by just a point, having played a game more than second-place Hornchurch. Elsewhere, Horsham continue to go great guns in the league, picking up a point at Worthing in front of a bumper Woodside Road crowd last weekend. But things are starting to looking decidedly sticky at relegation threat in Eastbourne Borough. What's the latest from our National League side, Steve? It seems... Yeah, form's downturned a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, they've all been in touch to ask you not to predict anything good for them, basically, because it doesn't seem to do the trick, does it? Worthing, they've had a little dip, but they are still top, so they'll take heart from that. They had a draw with the bottom side, Chippenham, when they were actually 2-0 down with about 3 minutes to go, and pulled it back to 2-2. They then lost 5-4, crazy game at Salisbury. You'd not be expecting Salisbury to score 5 against anybody really, let alone Worthing, but won it with a late goal. And then bit of normality resumed for Worthing last weekend with that draw against Horsham. Adam Hinchwood was a little bit upset that they took the lead in a tight game, a few chances, and didn't hold on to the lead, didn't sort of stay focused and letting the equaliser 3 minutes later. Not the worst result in the world for either team, but that keeps, as you say, Worthing still top. They played a game more than Hornchurch, but they're a point ahead of them. Long way to go for them. Long way to go as well for Eastbourne Borough, who have shown a lot of signs ever since Tommy Widrington came back. They've been making all the right noises and shown a lot of good signs, but they're still losing more games than they would want to be. So as it stands, they're 23rd. They're one off the bottom. They're on 21 points. They're 4 points from safety. They just need to start picking up some wins, particularly at home, where they have struggled for results. They've got a big one coming out this weekend that I know you're going to mention later on. Tommy Widrington has brought in quite a lot of his own players now. I think he said the game the other day was the first one where he's had more players in the team that he's brought in as opposed to players that he inherited. So that's what he's been trying to work towards. He's very much imposing his ways and his methods on the team. People that watch them can see the signs of improvement, but time's not on their side. They need to start getting those results to make sure they are well away from that bottom four by the end of the season, because relegation would be quite disastrous for them. I still think they'll do it. I think they've shown enough to suggest they can get away from that bottom four, but need to start doing it on the pitch, and it's all about results from here on in for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we move on, Steve, we should probably mention the crowd at Woodside Road for Worthing v Horsham, shouldn't we? Bumper crowd.
Yeah, 3,865, I think it was. Worthing had their record crowd, club record crowd, a few weeks ago when they played Dorking, which was 3,735, I think. So they've beaten that by another 130. The fact that Horsham would have taken a good number would have helped them. Just shows the potential there, doesn't it? And maybe we can bring David in on this. I mean, a few years ago, if you'd said that a Sussex non-league game was going to attract 3,800, David, people would have thought you're mad. But just shows the potential, not just at Worthing, but just in the area generally.
I think those two sides that you mentioned, Horsham and Worthing, are a good kind of model of excellence for other Sussex sides in terms of how well set up they are off the field. And it's not been an overnight success. Like, it's been a gradual kind of incremental progress year on year. And also the other thing about them is the consistency. Like, they obviously have a way of doing things, and Dom DePaul has been at the helm for quite a few number of years now. Obviously, I know Hinch went away to York and then came back again, but they've sort of stuck with that same manager. And even when Hinch went, and they were very careful about their recruitment process and brought in Chris Agata with a similar brand of football that seems to work for them. Plus, the other thing is, and you can see this across the board really in non-league, they've got the 3G facility. And I think there's definitely a correlation with success. Even if you look at the Isthmian Premier division with the sides near the top of that table, a lot of them have got an artificial surface, which not only generates a lot of income, but also gets you that consistent playing style and training and all the rest of it. So I think that's a key for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We're dropping down a division into the Isthmian Premier, and our sides have found it hard to pick up wins since our last pod. In fact, Lewis and Whiteoak were the only teams in the division from Sussex to pick up 3 points in the last fortnight. Again, not particularly good reading, Steve. What's the latest from our clubs at step 3?
Similar to what we've been saying, what we seem to have been saying all season about them, really. All four of them, Burgess Hill, Chichester, Lewis and Whitehawk, that none of them have had bad seasons, but they're just all a bit inconsistent, and that's still the case now. Burgess Hill, as you say, haven't won for a couple of weeks, but then they had a very good 1-1 draw at Folkestone last weekend. Folkestone 13 points clear at the top, so to go there and get anything was good going. And in fact, Burgess Hill were 1-0 up until about 6 minutes from the end. So no qualms from Burgess Hill about that result. Chichester City still up and down, had a bad day at Ramsgate, lost by 3 and didn't have much about them. Came back a little bit better at home to Wingate and Finchley last week. Lewis capable of beating some of the better teams in that division, but also capable of losing to teams in the bottom half as well. Ramsgate, latest team to beat them as well. And same with Whitehawk. They're picking up the odd win here and there, but nobody is really stringing together 2 to 3 wins in a row, which is what makes all the difference. So they're all quite sort of comfortable-ish in mid-table. Burgess Hill now 7th, 7 points off the playoff places. Chichester currently 10th. Lewis 13th, Whitehawk 14th, but Whitehawk are currently 7 points clear of the bottom 3, with quite a few teams in between them. So very difficult division to call that, as we've said. Anybody can beat anybody else. I was talking to Dabber at Chichester yesterday, and he was saying that looking at the bottom 4 at the moment, he thinks it's quite possible that somebody will go down with sort of 49, 50 points from that division this year, which is is incredible, really. Normally you would expect that to be enough to keep you up. So very competitive, but we're just hoping that 1 or 2 of our Sussex sides can find that bit of consistency that they haven't so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Fingers crossed. Well, moving into the Isthmian South East, and Three Bridges are now 8 points clear of second-placed AFC Croydon Athletic at the top of the table after the Surrey outfit slipped up at Ashford United a fortnight ago. Elsewhere, Broadwood Heath thumped beleaguered West Sussex rivals East Grinstead last weekend, while David, I'm sure, will be delighted for me to remind him about Tuesday evening, Crover claimed East Sussex bragging rights over Hastings United. Plenty of action to talk about in this division, Steve. What's the latest?
Three Bridges, got to start with them, really. Not showing any signs of any let-up, really. 8 points clear now of Croydon, who are second, and David can tell us a little bit about Croydon, having played them last weekend. Good side with some very good players, and they're well behind Three Bridges. So at the moment, you would say Three Bridges titled to lose. They look as though they're going to do it and get up to step 3 the next season, which they've been knocking on the door of for a couple of years now, in terms of getting to the playoffs and then almost getting to the playoffs. So well done to them. You then have to go quite a way down the table, really, to find the rest of the Sussex clubs. Broadbridge Heath had a bad run, but picked up emphatic win at East Grinstead, as you said, last Saturday, 6-0. That's lifted them back up into the top half. And then we've got a group of Sussex clubs, Hastings among them, just above the relegation zone. Actually, quite a few points above the relegation zone, but they'd like to be a little bit better off. Eastbourne Town currently 15th, Crowborough 16th, Hastings 17th. Sussex have now slipped into the relegation zone. It's been a while since they last picked up a win. As we've said on here before, had a very good start to the season, bit of momentum from last season. Just finding it tough at the moment. And if they're not careful, they'll get caught a little bit adrift in that bottom 4. Hope they can get out of it, but they're going to need to start picking up wins again fairly soon. And I'm afraid looking very bleak for East Grinstead right down the bottom, 4 points and 21 from safety. You just can't see that tide turning quick enough. I know you're going to bring David in to talk about some of the clubs in that division that he's seen and he rates.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Dave, be interested to get your impressions on this season, Isthmian South East Division in general. Who are the best sides you've seen so far? Steve mentioned Croydon, they're second. Obviously, Bridges leading the way. Who's impressed you?
Yeah, I've watched Bridges play this season. Funnily enough, I watched them against Hastings at the Jubilee Field in Crawley. But they were really impressive. And to be honest, that was quite early on in the season. And even then, I fancied them to be right up there. In April time. I actually think they'll do it. I think they'll go all the way and won't let up, and I think they'll win the league. Croydon we played the other week, and they were outstanding, to be honest with you. It was only really when I looked home that I sort of looked up, all of their players. And there was a few that I wasn't aware of, but it's actually 13 out of their 16 had been a full-time professional at a club at some point in their careers. Yeah. So I was saying to our lads, because we were a little bit disappointed because we held them off for 60 minutes, so for an hour we're actually 1-0 up. But then where these guys have come from this full-time background, they're so well conditioned physically. The last half an hour of the game, they just completely took control, and it was wave after wave of attack. So, you know, we've got boys that have spent the last 10 years at Rothy, and they've got boys that have spent the last 10 years at Chelsea. So it was always going to be a tough ask. I thought we competed well for 60 minutes. And then, as I say, the quality, you know, showed through really. But I think those two will be the top two. And as you say, down the bottom, it's tight. Like, I actually think we've been a little bit unlucky because we've been on a good run. Actually, statistically, we're the most improved side in the division. I was saying this to my staff the other day. When I arrived, we had only 8 points from 12 games, and then we picked up 23 points from the next 14, which gave us a points per game of 1.67. And, you know, that's any other season sort of playoff form. But because of the start we've had, it made it quite an uphill battle. But also the other teams around us also then picked up a good vein of form. So teams like Ashford and Sevenoaks went on a really good run. So we haven't actually climbed that far in the table despite our upturn in form. And then it was the other sides like your Hassets, for example, that had a really good beginning, have slowly slipped down a little bit, and they're struggling to get a win at the moment. So they've crept right back into it. But I still think it's all to play for. I don't think anyone's fully safe yet. And yeah, with the new manager going in there, Eric, that'll give them a lift as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting. There's 15 games to go, so we'll see what happens.
And David, you played Crowborough the other night. I think you described them as very well organised after that game. Do you think they'll be okay?
I do think they'll be okay. Yeah, I do. And I really like Sean Muggeridge as well. I think he's a great guy. Really nice, like a proper gentleman. And obviously he's done over 500 games there now. So incredible effort on that front. Get on really well with his son Henry too. He's a great leader, a great captain. They were the better team for the first half. There's no doubt about that. And they deservedly went 1-0 up. We then came out really strong in the second half. And even I was looking back through their Twitter feed earlier, and you can see even by the narrative that they're putting out there, it was very much one-way traffic in the second half. And we sort of bombarded them with wave after wave of attacks, but we just couldn't really break through. So they were so robust and organised. And obviously they got the lad Body at the back, their skipper, who's been there for years, and he was excellent on the night. Then they sort of boomed the ball forward on, a rare breakaway and scored. Made it 2-0. We managed to get a goal back, but it was too little too late. So a little bit disappointed with the way we sort of acquitted ourselves in the first half. I don't think that we really put as much into it as we should have done. But credit to Crowborough, they deserved it in the end.
Whenever we have managers on here from the Isthmian South East, David, or the SCFL Premier, I always ask them about what it's like going to Jersey and Guernsey. Well, you've got Jersey, I think, last game of the season away from home, but I've just had a look and you've already played them in the trophy, haven't you? What was the preparation like for that game? It must be something you've probably never been quite used to before.
So I wasn't actually at the club then, I'll be honest, but I did look at the fixtures. As soon as I accepted the role, that's one of the first things you do. You check all the fixtures and, when the Christmas games are and the last game of the season and things like that. So yeah, looking forward to the Jersey one. I'm kind of hoping that there's not going to be a lot riding on it. Hopefully we're safe by then. If we need to get a win, could be an interesting one on the last game of the season, but it could be an incredible party as well. It'd be a great celebration and some flight home. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, looking forward to that. It's uncharted territory for me. I've never done that journey. So we'll see how we go.
Excellent stuff. Well, if all goes well, make sure to send me and Steve a postcard of your celebrations, if all goes well at the end of the season. We'll stay in at step 4. Bognor and Littlehampton remain firmly ensconced in mid-table in the Isthmian South East. How have the Rocks and Golds been going since our last pod, Steve? It seems like there's a bit of a theme where not been great either way, to be honest.
I think I could replay probably what I said last time about these two. Bit frustrating in a way. Bognor currently 11th, Littlehampton 13th. It's kind of win one, lose one. Really, Mitch Hand has spoken about that at Littlehampton about, he's tearing his hair out. The fact they just can't win 2 games in a row. If they win one, they almost know they're going to draw or lose the next one. Equally, if they lose one, they know the next win is going to be coming. It's a very tight league table, and if either of those two clubs had a particularly good run, they could get in the playoffs still. If either of them had a particularly bad run, they could still get dragged into the relegation. So the form that they've both shown since August doesn't suggest that they're going to have that good run or bad run. I think they're both going to do enough to stay well away from relegation. But as we speak now, I don't think either of them have quite got the quality to get into the playoffs. Having said that, it's the first season in that division for both of them. They'll, come the start of next season, they'll know a lot more about it, a lot more about the level required and some of the opponents, and I think they'll be well set for a good run at it next season.
And now we come to the SCFL Premier, where Stenning cut Haywards Heath lead at the top 2 3 points after a fine home win over Roffey. But Heath weren't in action last weekend owing to FA Vars commitments, which we'll come on to shortly. Meanwhile, Eastbourne United sort off Bexhill in a 11-goal thriller, while Seaford and Little Common played out an edge-of-your-seat 3-3 draw. Lots of goals in that division last weekend, Steve. Sum of that action up for us, please.
Yes, you've summed it up rather well there yourself. Goals all over the place. Eastbourne United, who I think scored 9 in a game earlier this season. They might even have got 10. Somebody got 10. I can't remember if it was them or somebody else. But yeah, full of goals when they get going. James Hull scored 5 of them. The Hull family will be well known to David, so he probably won't have been too surprised to see that. And Eastbourne United actually are one of the clubs that are just sort of creeping up the table. They had a bit of a slow start, but you wouldn't bet against them ending up in the playoffs. 9th place they are at the moment, 37 points. They're only 8 points behind 5th place. So they've got every chance of making an impression in the playoff places. We should talk about the title race at the top. Getting interesting because Stenning are taking advantage of the fact that Haywards Heath have had a couple of blank weekends because of their Vars run, which we'll talk about in a moment. So Stenning are now only 3 points behind Haywards Heath, and that is a much less of a gap than we did have not that long ago. Good win over Roffey at home for Stenning last weekend. Haywards Heath weren't in action because they were in the Vars, and Haywards Heath are again in FA Vars action this weekend. So Stenning could go level on points with them if they win their game this weekend. They would then have played 2 games more. So the playoff places at the moment: Stenning, Guernsey, Horsham YM, and Newhaven, with Peacehaven, Pagham, Forest Row, and Eastbourne United just behind them. At the bottom, Shoreham 4 points adrift now, not looking too good for them. And you've got Vardinians, Midhurst, Lancing, who have not quite climbed out of it as I thought they would a few weeks ago. They've still got a bit to do. And then reading up from there, Lingfield, Crawley Down, Gatwick, who are slowly improving, and I'm sure we'll pick up enough points to be clear of that. So yeah, lots to play for at both ends in that division.
David, I'd like to get your experiences of the SCFL Premier. What strengths do you think a club needs to win promotion and then stay in the Isthmian South East subsequently?
Yeah, I think... I know Kev quite well at Haywards Heath, and obviously he's won the division before with Stenning, and he's taken a bit of criticism really because people often just talk about the budget, don't they? And you've got the biggest budget, therefore you should win the league. But there's a lot more to it than that. I mean, you've seen it many times over the years in all sorts of divisions that it isn't necessarily the case that the team with the biggest budget wins the league. You look at Billericay and Isthmian Prem last year. So, credit to him. They're really ploughing on quite solidly, and they're going to be hard to catch. And it's going to be a good race actually between them and Stenning with only 3 points in it. And then the other thing is, you talked about the FA Vars game. They've obviously got to go there on a Sunday and then play Pagham, who are riding quite high as well on the Tuesday. You know, if they don't pick up a win in that one, Stenning might just fancy their chances to start overtaking them. I don't know. It's going to go down to the wire. But going back to Kevin Haywards Heath, I think the first thing is the players. Obviously, you need good players, but also like the attitude towards it. You need ambitious and professional players, like people that want to train well, often training twice a week and train with intensity and seriousness, because there is a little bit of it can be quite polarised in the county prem, where you've got some teams that treat it very much as like a social thing, where it's very much, maybe we train, maybe we don't train, go for a few beers after the game, etc., etc. And then you've got teams more towards the top of the table that are really well drilled and well coached, like Stenning and Haywards Heath, and Horsham as well. Horsham YM are going really well as well this season. And I know they take their preparation and coaching and stuff like that very seriously. So I think it's those ones towards the top that have just got the sort of the more professional mindset towards it all. They want to get promotion, and they're ambitious, and they work hard off the field to ensure that they're in the mix come the end of the season. In terms of staying there the following season, I mean, it's always difficult to go up and then obviously retain your position in the league. You see, even with Stenning last year, which ironically was a lot of the Haywards Heath squad this season, wasn't it? That Kevin brought back in from his first tenure at Stenning. It's, Jack Barnes and all those guys are really good players. Even they struggled to stay up last season. So I think what you find obviously in the Isthmian divisions is you then have to go to Kent quite a lot. There's a lot of Kent sides, and they play a different brand to football. We can be quite easy on the eye down in Sussex and keep it on the floor and play nice passing, attractive football. But they've got a lot of big physical lads and they like to just knock it long. Teams like Sittingbourne and Deal and stuff like that. So you have to be equipped to cope with that sort of onslaught and maybe have a little bit more in your armoury to cover all bases.
That's an interesting insight. Steve, very quickly, how are things in the Division 1 of the SCFL while we're talking about those leagues?
Yes, Godalming still top, 4 points clear, and with games in hand on the teams behind them. Not so far clear that you think it's sewn up already. Still a title to play for there for the teams behind them, who are at the moment Worthing United had a good win over Selsey last weekend. Their second, Infinity, Arundel, and Billingshurst, the other sides in the playoff places, and all kind of within reasonable distance of Godalming at the top there, so plenty to play for there. At the other end, Copthorne well adrift, unfortunately. AFC Uckfield Town, bit of a surprise to see them as low as 17th. Oakwood and Saltdean, next one's up. And David, 2 of your ex-clubs in this division, I wanted to ask you about them, whether you keep an eye on them. Ringmer, 13th currently, Loxwood, 14th. I know you've had connections in the past with both. A little while ago, you wouldn't have expected to see those two at the same level. Actually, Loxwood were a couple of divisions ahead of Ringmer, but are those 2 that you keep an eye on? And in fact, do you have a look at this league at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I do keep an eye on them, and I speak regularly to the guys at Ringmer. I'm still connected to the club to an extent because I've got my soccer school business down there in the school holidays. And they're really, you talk about infrastructure and professionalism, they are really well organised. As you know, they've got a fantastic facility, which in itself is great for recruiting players, but they take their training seriously. They've got the VO cameras, GPS, that's all this, the usual stuff. So for a County 1 side, they're incredibly professional in terms of their setup. I think they've just signed as well the ex-Seaford captain, Simpson, perhaps, which will be a good addition. They've got a couple of my colleagues, Lucas Sewell down there, a former colleague of mine, Ryan Doyle, some good experienced heads that have played higher. They've got one of my lads, Sean Morrell, has just gone there on dual registration from Hastings, and he's doing well for them, scored a great goal the other day. They've done really well because obviously it's their first season back in county football for some time, and to stay up will be a tremendous achievement. And I know that with Tommy Haddon and John Hart and Ollie Gibson, behind the scenes at the helm, they should do it. Loxwood, again, really nice club, lovely facility. I really like Mark Lacey, the chairman behind the scenes there. I don't know Ian Matthews very well, the manager, but by all accounts, he's a good guy. And again, he's got a couple of my college boys down there, Tyler Emray, Mason Massey, boys like that. Good young players, and I'm sure they'll be absolutely fine as well. It's a nice club with a really nice playing surface. I always enjoy going there.
Good stuff. Now I'm briefly going to turn the tables on Matt and take over as question master just for a second. Be afraid, Matt. Be very afraid. We're turning our attentions to the cups now. We've got quite a lot of cup action to get through from the past fortnight. And starting with the FA Trophy, Horsham, last Sussex side in the trophy, have been for a while, it seems like, made the trip to Isthmian South Central leaders Leatherhead in the 4th round, Saturday before last. And it was a classic game of 2 halves, Matt, I think, wasn't it? You were there. Tell us about it and what's happened since.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that Dom and everyone at Horsham won't mind me saying that Horsham were absolutely rotten in the first half of that game. Leatherhead thoroughly deserved their lead, found themselves 2-0 up at half-time. Then it was a completely different Horsham side. I must admit, I missed Rhys Murphy's first goal. I was in the world's longest queue for a pint, but I did see Ola Ogunwamade's equaliser. Fantastic curling effort to draw Horsham level, and then Rhys Murphy struck with 4 minutes to go to send Horsham through to the next round. Little bit of contrasting emotions for me for who they've got in the next round. For the club, it's absolutely fantastic as they are off to former Football League club Scunthorpe in the next round, riding quite high in the National League, I believe. I think they're in the playoffs at the moment. But it's a bit of a, how shall I put it? It's a bit of a difficult trip to make. And I was quite surprised to see today that the club aren't actually running a supporters coach up to Scunthorpe, which I'm fairly surprised about. But yeah, it'll be a great occasion for the club. Another fantastic cup tie for Dom and everyone at the club to go alongside their fantastic FA Cup trips to Carlisle, Barnsley, Chesterfield and Sutton. So yeah, best of Sussex luck to Horsham in the next round. I believe they're playing Scunthorpe on the 31st of January. Fingers crossed we will get a trip to Wembley, Steve, which is the main thing. It is indeed. Speaking of trips to Wembley, last weekend saw Haywards Heath Town and Crawley Down Gatwick on their travels in the fourth round of the FA Vase as they themselves looked to book a place in a Wembley final. The Blues trekked to Great Yarmouth Town while the Anvils went to Cockfosters. How did our sides get on to Steve? David kind of alluded to it a little bit, but one of our team's ties descended into farce somewhat, didn't it?
It did. So commiserations first of all to Crawley Down Gatwick. Went to Cockfosters, North London club. Played well, gave as good as they got, took it to extra time and lost to a sort of late extra time goal, I think it was. So they've gone out. I think they've reached this same stage of Crawley Down Gatwick for the last two seasons. So good little sort of record they're building up in the Vase. That should mean they get a couple of buys next season and are able to miss a couple of rounds. So commiserations to them. Haywards Heath are still in the Vase, but they're not yet through to the next round. Went up to Great Yarmouth, as you said. They were backed by a good 150, 200 fans. Conceded early, came back quite well. Tom Chalai equalised for them. They, by all accounts, were on top, but early in the second half, not a red mist, but a sea mist descended. And very thick fog. It was pretty obvious that it wasn't going anywhere. The referee, first of all, took the players off. About 10 minutes later, he was convinced that he needed to call it off, and he did. Everybody came home, and they've got to go back, not on Saturday, but on Sunday. That's because Great Yarmouth's ground share with Galston Town, who are in the Isthmian Division 1 North, I think it is. They've got a game arranged for Saturday already, so it doesn't really suit anybody. But Great Yarmouth against Haywards Heath is being replayed on Sunday. I think Haywards Heath are trying to sort out free travel for those who want to go back, who did travel last weekend, which is a great gesture for them. They've then 48 hours later got to play Pagham in the league. There were attempts to change that game. Pagham weren't keen to. Their feeling was they've moved it a couple of times already. It's got to be played at some point. So there's a little bit of sort of consternation between those sides there. But the upshot is that Haywards Heath still in the Vase and will go up to Great Yarmouth, probably quite confident. They'll know a little bit more about their hosts this time, and they will probably think that they can go up there and get through. It'd be great if they can.
Yes, absolutely. Best of luck to Haywards Heath this weekend. And we now know the identity of three of our Sussex Transport Senior Cup semi-finalists. Three Bridges have entertained Horsham, while Bognor hosted Brighton under-23s 2 weeks ago, while Worthing made the trip to Broadbridge Heath on Tuesday just gone. Who ran out as winners in those aforementioned ties, Steve, and who have we got left to play in the quarterfinals?
Yes, so there's no three cups in a row for Horsham. We thought they might do it again, or I thought they might do it again this year, but they lost on penalties at Three Bridges. I think they were a little bit injury hit when they went to Three Bridges, but not an excuse from Dom. He was perfectly accepting of the result. So Three Bridges are through to the semi-finals. So are Brighton under-21s. They won quite convincingly at Bognor. A couple of really nice goals that we were able to put on our website. I don't know if anybody saw them. 4-1, I think it was at Bognor. No surprise there. Worthing are also through. Won it in 2023 and were beaten finalists in 2022, so they will be confident of getting back to the final and maybe winning it. They won 3-1 at Broadbridge Heath on Tuesday, and we've got, as you say, one quarter-final to go, which is Horsham YM against Eastbourne Borough. That was rained off last week. They are playing, I think, on the 3rd of February. Before then, we will have the draw for the semi-finals, which is taking place Saturday evening this week.
All very exciting. Interesting stat. That penalty shootout defeat for Horsham was their first in the Senior Cup in over 1,000 days, which just goes to show how remarkable their run has been in that competition. Yeah, very impressive indeed. And finally, as is tradition, Steve and I will now both select our game of the week in Sussex. Steve, what has caught your eye this week?
I'm going to go for an Isthmian Premier game between Burgess Hill and Dartford. Burgess Hill 7th, Dartford 5th at the moment, so that's a real chance for Burgess Hill to show that they are, they deserve to be where they are in and around those playoff places. Their home form since they went back to Leylands Park on the 3G has been a little bit up and down. They've lost as many as they've won, but Dartford would be a good test. Bound to be goals in it. Hoping that Burgess Hill can get a morale boosting win in that one.
Fingers crossed. And yeah, as Steve kind of alluded to earlier, my game of the week involves Eastbourne Borough when they host Farnborough in this Saturday in the National League South. Second from bottom being 20th. Massive game at the bottom. Just 4 points separates these two teams. A win is absolutely vital for the Sports if they had to stay in Step 2. So fingers crossed Borough pick up a positive result on Saturday. And finally, David, for those who don't know, what are Hastings up to this week?
Sorry, I'm just sort of wandering around my offices looking for a phone charger. So if I cut out, I'm not being rude.
That's fine.
Yeah, we've got Whiteleaf. I think there's a good chance it might be off at the moment. The pitch was in a terrible state on Tuesday, and I know that in that Broadbridge Heath Worthing game was very similar on the Tuesday night. Like arguably could have been called off near the end. There's puddles of water on the pitch and stuff, but we'll see how we go. Fingers crossed it's on. Looking forward to playing it. They're another side that are in the playoffs. Really good team. Another one with a big budget, some real superstar players in there. But I think we've got a Whiteleaf, Faversham and Three Bridges in our next three. So it doesn't really get much tougher than that. But we're optimistic to get something out of some of those games, if not all of them. So we look forward to these ones. These are the ones you want to play, the ones that are going to test you. It's a big challenge for the players, and yeah, we'll give it our best shot.
Yeah,
I'm sure you will. Best of luck. Not just this week, David, but for the rest of the season as well. Thank you very much for joining us this week. Don't forget to keep checking out sussexworld.co.uk/sport for all the best coverage of local football plus your local Sussex weekly papers. And keep your eyes peeled for future episodes of the podcast where we'll have guests from a variety of clubs. My thanks once again go to David and Steve, as ever, for joining us. Thank you very much for listening and or watching, and we will see you when we see you.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.